Every summer morning, I walk out to this garden before anything else, before breakfast, before the day starts, before I have said a word to anyone. And I carry nothing with me but my eyes and an old coffee can. My neighbor Carol, she drives to the hardware store every June, comes back with a bag of bottles, spray for the aphids, spray for the beetles, spray for the hornworms, spray for whatever chewed on the squash overnight. $50, $60, $80 a season. And every August she is back at that store buying the same bottles again because the pests came back. They always come back. I have not bought a bottle of pesticide in 40 years. Not one. And my tomatoes, my squash, my peppers, my beans, my cabbages, they do not look like they are losing a war. They look like a garden that has been tended for a long time by people who understood what they were doing. My name is Ruth Byler. I am Amish. I farm in Holmes County, Ohio, and my family has been putting food in the ground in this county for 4 generations. My grandmother grew up without synthetic pesticides because they did not exist yet. She learned to work with the garden the way the garden works because she had no other choice. And what she discovered through decades of careful attention, what she passed to my mother, and what my mother passed to me, is that the garden does not need to be fought, it needs to be understood. Today, I want to show you everything I do, in the order I do it, and why it works. Everything I am going to tell you costs almost nothing. Most of it costs exactly nothing. But I want to be honest with you, the way I always am. This is not a quick fix. What I am going to show you is a system, 6 parts. And when all 6 are working together, the pests are still there. They are always there. But they never get ahead of you. Stay with me. The first thing, and the most important thing, is the one that surprises people every time I say it. Pest control starts in the soil, not on the leaves. I know. You see aphids on your tomato stems, and your first instinct is to do something about the aphids. That is the wrong place to look. That is like seeing water coming through your ceiling and going to get a bucket instead of fixing the roof. The aphids are the symptom. The weak plant is the problem. And the weak plant comes from weak soil. Healthy soil grows healthy plants, and healthy plants can handle moderate pest pressure on their own without any help from you. The agricultural schools at Penn State and Cornell have been studying this for 30 years. Plants grown in living, biologically active soil produce stronger cell walls and higher concentrations of the natural compounds that deter insects. The plant defends itself. Your job is to give it the conditions to do that. Every spring, before I put anything in the ground, I spread 2 to 3 inches of well-aged compost over every bed and work it into the top 4 to 6 inches of soil. Not a thin dusting, a real layer. We use composted horse and cow manure combined with kitchen scraps and garden waste. That combination creates the bacteria, the fungi, the earthworms that feed the plant all season without any bag or bottle. If you do not have animals, regular homemade compost or a good bagged compost works fine. The key is doing it every year, not once, every year, every spring. I started this practice 40 years ago on soil that was hard and pale. Every year, the soil on this farm gets darker, looser, and more alive. One honest note: you will not see the full results in one season. The second year is noticeably better than the first. The third year is better still. 3 years from now, if you do this every spring, your pest problems will be a small fraction of what they are today. The plants will be bigger, more vigorous. And the pests, while still present, will do noticeably less damage because the plants will be strong enough to handle them. The second thing we do is what my grandmother called good sense. The books call it companion planting. Most people plant their gardens in long single-crop rows, all the tomatoes together, all the beans together, all the squash way over there. It looks organized, and to a pest, it is an all-you-can-eat buffet laid out in a straight line. Most garden pests find your plants by smell. Aphids, hornworms, cabbage moths, squash bugs. They follow the chemical signals that host plants release into the air. If your tomatoes are in a long row surrounded by 60 other tomato plants, all giving off the same strong signal, that pest can find them from 50 yards away. Now plant those same tomatoes surrounded by basil, dill, and marigolds. The smell of those companions drowns out the tomato signal. The pest gets confused. It cannot find what it is looking for, and often it moves on. For every 3 or 4 tomato plants, I tuck one basil plant about 8 to 10 inches from the base. Basil repels aphids, whiteflies, and hornworms. Between every row of cabbage, kale, or broccoli, I plant dill or cilantro every 12 to 14 inches. These herbs repel cabbage moths, and when the dill flowers, it attracts the tiny parasitic wasps that lay their eggs inside caterpillars and kill them from the inside. I am not just repelling one pest, I am recruiting the pest's natural enemy at the same time. Along the borders of every bed, French marigolds. The small French variety, about 10 to 12 inches apart all the way around. Marigold roots release a compound into the soil that suppresses the nematodes that damage roots underground. Their scent above ground deters whiteflies and squash bugs. I plant them because my grandmother planted them, and because the research confirms she was right. Never plant a crop alone. Always give it neighbors that confuse the pests and attract the allies. The third thing is the one that takes the most patience, because you cannot rush it and you cannot buy it. We invite the good bugs in. Most gardens work against this without meaning to. You spray something, even something organic, and you kill the aphids. You also kill the ladybugs that were coming to eat the aphids. You also kill the lacewings, the parasitic wasps, the ground beetles that hunt cutworms at night. One ladybug eats 50 aphids in a single day. One lacewing larva can consume 200 aphids in its lifetime. Ground beetles patrol the soil after dark, eating slugs, grubs, and cutworms. These creatures are working for you every single day, free of charge. And when you spray, you take them away. Along one edge of every garden, I keep an insect border. A strip 2 feet wide, planted with sweet alyssum at the front, then alternating yarrow and dill behind it, and fennel at the back. These plants flower from early spring through late fall and feed the beneficial insects all season. The key is continuous bloom. If your border stops flowering in July, your allies leave to find food elsewhere. Plan for something in bloom every month from April to October. We also leave certain areas of the property a little rough on purpose. A pile of flat stones near the garden fence, a strip of unmowed clover along the back edge, a few logs left to rot in the corner. These are not signs of laziness. They are habitat. Ground beetles need shelter to breed and overwinter. Spiders need the same. A perfectly manicured garden with bare, raked soil between every row hangs a sign saying, "No room for allies." Let some of it stay wild. The creatures living in the rough parts of your property will pay their rent in pests consumed season after season. The fourth thing is the morning walk, and I believe it may be the single most valuable habit a gardener can build. I have never missed a morning walk in 40 years of gardening, not one morning. I carry my coffee can filled halfway with water and a squirt of soap, and I walk every row, every bed, turning over leaves, checking the undersides of stems, looking for what changed since yesterday. Most serious pest damage does not happen because of one or two bugs. It happens because a small population was allowed to grow unchecked. A single tomato hornworm can strip an entire branch in 48 hours. A pair of squash bugs can lay hundreds of eggs in a week. By the time most gardeners notice the damage, the problem has already grown beyond what one spray can handle. The morning walk catches problems when they are still one or two bugs, not 20 or 200. 2 hornworms on Monday becomes 0 hornworms on Monday, instead of 20 hornworms destroying your best plant by Friday. On the tomatoes, look at the top leaves and along the stems. Hornworms camouflage perfectly with the green, but they leave dark droppings on the leaves below. Look for the droppings first, then look up from there. On the squash and cucumbers, flip every large leaf and look at the underside. Squash bug eggs are small, bronze-colored, laid in neat clusters. Scrape them off with your thumbnail. Takes 5 seconds per leaf and saves your entire squash harvest. On the cabbage and broccoli, watch for the small white butterflies hovering around the plants. Where you see the butterfly, you will find the eggs. Get them before they hatch. 15 minutes every morning is always faster than the hours required to deal with an infestation that 15 minutes of daily attention would have prevented. After 2 or 3 seasons of morning walks, you will know your garden well enough to move quickly. You will know which plants attract trouble first, which corners the beetles find first, which time of season the hornworms arrive. You will know the garden's rhythms. That knowledge is worth more than any product on any shelf. The 5th thing is something I learned watching my grandmother. She called it sending the pests somewhere else. Some pests prefer certain plants so strongly that if you give them their favorite, they will mostly leave your vegetables alone. You plant something the pest loves even more than your crops, somewhere at the edges, away from the food you care about, and that plant draws the trouble there instead. Nasturtiums are the oldest trap crop in this community. Aphids are almost irresistibly drawn to nasturtium leaves, far more than to your beans or peppers or tomatoes. I plant nasturtiums in a ring around the outside of the garden, about 6 to 8 inches apart. The aphids cluster there. The ladybugs from my insect border find them and feast. I am not losing the nasturtiums. I am using them as bait, and the ladybugs are finishing the job. For squash vine borers and cucumber beetles, I plant 2 or 3 blue Hubbard squash plants at the far corners of the garden. Blue Hubbard draws these pests like nothing else. The borers and beetles go there. My main squash crop stays largely clean. For flea beetles on young eggplant, a row of radishes planted 2 feet in front will take the damage for them. Sacrifice the radish tops, keep the eggplant. This requires no spray, no product, no daily labor. You plant it once and it works all season. The 6th and last thing takes about 10 minutes. For times when pest pressure is heavier than usual, a wet summer, a new pest in the area, a plant that is struggling, I make a simple deterrent spray from the kitchen. 4 to 5 cloves of garlic, 2 hot peppers, cayenne or whatever you have, chopped and steeped in 1 quart of warm water for at least 12 hours. In the morning, strain the liquid through cheesecloth into a spray bottle and add 1 teaspoon of plain dish soap, not detergent, plain soap. Spray the plants in the early morning or evening, never in midday sun. Focus on the undersides of leaves, where most pests hide and feed. One application lasts 5 to 7 days. Reapply after heavy rain. I want to be straight with you about what this spray does. It deters. It makes your plants smell and taste unpleasant to the insects. They move on. It does not kill on contact. And it is part of the system, the sixth part, the backup, not a replacement for the first 5. If you skip building your soil, skip the companions, skip the insect border, skip the morning walk, and skip the trap crops, and rely on this spray alone, it will not be enough. Nothing will be enough on its own. A garden is a system, and it needs all its parts. That is the honest truth. Let me tell you about one last thing before I close. Something I have never seen described in any gardening book, but that every Amish family I know does without thinking, because they learned it from the generation before them. When we transplant young seedlings into the garden, we place a collar around each one. An old toilet paper roll or a paper towel roll cut into sections about 4 inches long. We push one end about 1 inch into the soil around the base of the seedling and leave 3 inches standing above ground. That is the whole thing. This collar stops cutworms. Cutworms are the larvae that crawl along the soil surface at night and chew directly through the stem of a young transplant right at ground level. The plant is fine in the evening. In the morning, it is lying on the ground, severed at the base, dead. Most gardeners do not know what happened. The cardboard collar creates a physical barrier the cutworm cannot cross, and the cardboard breaks down naturally after 4 to 6 weeks, right when the plant stem has become tough enough that a cutworm can no longer bite through it anyway. No plastic, no purchased product, no chemical. Just a piece of cardboard and the knowledge that a young transplant has a vulnerable window of about a month, and that is the only time you need to protect it from this threat. I started using these 40 years ago. I lose almost no transplants to cutworm damage anymore. Build your soil every year. Plant companions that confuse the pests and invite their natural enemies. Create habitat and let parts of your property stay rough enough to shelter the beneficial creatures. Walk your garden every morning. Use trap crops to draw pests away from what you value. Make the kitchen spray when you need extra help. And put a cardboard collar on every transplant. The pest companies would prefer you not know any of this. There is no monthly contract in a pile of flat stones left for ground beetles. There is no repeat purchase in sweet alyssum seed you save from year to year. There is no profit margin in a cardboard toilet paper roll. These things belong to the gardener. There is no money in telling you that, so nobody with money to spend on advertising is going to tell you. My people have always said, tend the garden the way the garden wants to be tended, and the garden will take care of you. Tell me in the comments what pest has been giving you the most trouble this season. The hornworms, the aphids, the squash bugs, the cutworms? Tell me what you tried and what worked and what did not. I read every one, and what you share with each other in those comments teaches every new gardener who comes after you. Next time, I want to show you what we do in the fall to put the garden to bed in a way that makes it wake up stronger in the spring. No tilling, no chemicals, just straw, compost, a cover crop seeded by hand, and a practice as old as farming itself. Until then, tend well, waste nothing, and remember, the best pest control is a garden that does not need